Last week I watched Obsession finally, and got two words. Holy fuck.
I love you. I love you. I love you. I love you!
After breaking the mysterious one-wish will to win his crush's heart, a hopeless romantic finds himself getting exactly what he asked for, but soon discovers that some desires come at a dark, sinister price. Obsession wasn't initially on my list of movies to watch when the first teaser came around, purely because it didn't look like anything special. But what made its way towards the top was the word of mouth during the festival runs and the rave reviews critics gave it when it was released worldwide. I was dying to watch this movie by then, and holy hell, it definitely lives up to the hype. I don't know much about Curry Barker outside of a couple of TikToks I saw a few years ago, and that much like Markiplier or Raka Raka before him, he got a star on YouTube and actually made a movie before this called Milk and Cereal, which I haven't gotten a chance to watch yet. But in terms of first impressions, this was one hell of a first. Obsession is a movie that doesn't quite feel like a horror movie for a good chunk of the first half, and I genuinely think that works in its favor. The first half plays like a cheeky rom-com. Most of the dialogue reflects that, even when the movie turns into a full-on horror. It settles you in just enough to leave you asking why people were hyping it up so much before it hits you with the aforementioned wish made by Bear 25 minutes in. From then on, it becomes an emotional and utterly terrifying experience that quickly cements itself as one of the best films in 2026. One of the reasons why that movie works so well comes down to the four characters we follow throughout the film. It introduces the core group of friends flawlessly, which are four of the most toxic friends I think I've ever seen. It's not exactly rare for a horror movie to have unlikable friends, but to be able to have an unlikable friend group and still be able to make you care about them within the context of the story is really cool. It's honestly impressive how all four characters are utilized greatly, two of which being the standouts of the film, Bear and Nikki. The opening gives such a good idea as to who Bear and Ian are as people. It starts with a corny but sweet scene where Bear practices admitting his feelings for Nikki to a waitress, only to be immediately met with a brash critique from Ian. Almost immediately, the movie sets up Bear as insecure and indecisive, while also showing that he means well, at least during these first couple minutes of the movie. Michael Johnston is utterly phenomenal as Bear, and quite possibly my favorite protagonist that I've seen this year. From the moment he's introduced, you get a great sense of his character and his overall flaw of just not committing to a single idea, which they end up utilizing tremendously throughout the film. And in a way, Michael plays two versions of Bear that are very different from each other, while at the same time are the exact same person. At the start, even past when he makes the wish, he's just a guy, an introverted loser that's kind of dorky and doesn't quite gel with the others. As the movie goes on, we slowly start to see Bear's real personality creeping through due to his actions. There's a lot of speculation as to when he becomes the bad guy, at one point roughly deeming him as irredeemable when he makes the wish in the first place, or the multiple times he rapes Nikki, both before and after he figures out the wish came true. In a way, I don't necessarily think it flat out turns him into a villain, at least not entirely. From the moment he uses the willow, he doesn't think the wish worked and believes that Nikki actually likes him when she comes to his house the night after. The fact that he doesn't see that Nikki changed plays into how she fit what he imagined her to be. The dinner scene is the first real indication that wish Nikki is starting to crack. And just for the record, Bear is a scumbag. He immediately tries blaming Nikki for coming on to him after she launches herself up in the bed, which was the first real instance of his personality.
I'm sorry.
You don't have to be sorry, just... Shit, you made me feel like I did something you didn't like.
No.
But I also don't think he's immediately bad, since the movie actually does a good job keeping the wish actually working a mystery, something that honestly should have been hidden in the marketing. And in my opinion, he completely stops being the protagonist the moment he walks out on Nikki to meet Sarah. A lot of this movie could have been avoided had Bear grown a pair and just tell Nikki how he felt about her, but since he didn't, he makes a wish, and with a couple other decisions like not telling Ian the truth much earlier, canceling the wish, or in the darkest bit of irony, fulfill Nikki's wish of killing her, he ends up inadvertently killing Sarah and Ian. The main reason why Bear isn't absolutely unlikable for a good portion of the movie is mostly because of the fact that much like everything else, he can't commit to being a bad person. For every instance he's faced with having to admit his wrong, he blames anything but himself. With a lot of his actions, the movie does a good job making him sympathetic while also telling you that yes, Bear is the bad guy, with many lines hinting at the fact that he made his bed and should lie in it. Once he denies Nikki's wish to kill her, he absolutely pays the price for it when she smashes Sarah's face in, and it's honestly darkly hilarious how much regret is shown on Bear's face as it happens. It isn't even shock, just utter regret. I also love how he can't help himself and make the situation much more complicated when he tries so desperately to convince Ian that the willow is real. He just has to mention that Ian could have Nikki, which makes the prideful ego come up, and Ian screws not just himself but Bear as well when he jokingly wishes for $1 million. Also, I absolutely love the look of defeat and anger on Bear's face while the score just ascends as the money falls. The main reason why the horror works in this this movie is because we're in the same sea as Bear, while also understanding that Nikki isn't a villain in the slightest. All of her scary quirks are a great mixture of both personalities clashing, a constant battle for control she ultimately ends up losing, which I'll get into more in a bit. Bear is such a layered character, and Johnson's performance is the perfect blend of making you feel bad for him before absolutely hating him with his constant denial of the situation being his fault. One of my favorite scenes in the film is when Bear sits with the aftermath of Sarah's death. He opens the letter she was going to open with him and finds out she got accepted into the last school she applied to. Bear just lets out this guttural scream which drove me to literal tears for a couple different reasons. But immediately after, he goes back to the store where he got the willow and blames them rather than himself for even buying the damn thing. It's really hard to completely hate Bear, but at the same time, his selfishness and sheer cowardice caused everything to fall apart. Indy Never Ready is definitely the star of the movie as Nikki, though. It's obvious, and I'm so glad I didn't look at any of the marketing past 2 or 3 teasers, because the majority of her performance, aside from maybe one scene, is in the promos. Out of the 4 friends, Nikki is probably the one we know about the least, and it's one of those things where the movie knows that and allows it to bleed into the horror of the situation. A lot of the stuff we find out about Nikki comes secondhand from Sarah or Ian. It pretty much exposes that outside of the friend group and work, Bear knows jack shit about Nikki as a person, and I like how they approach Wish Nikki gaining information to further fit his image of her. Never Ready does a fantastic job doing small things as Nikki that makes her such a likable character. She has such a lively personality joking around with the group and even giving money to a homeless person, 2 things that we never see her do again when she's the Wish version of herself. She is so fucking good playing 2 very different versions of the same character, and she makes Wish Nikki utterly terrifying throughout. The best way I've seen Wish Nikki described as is that unlike Nikki, she's very pathetic and desperate for Bear's love, that she pretty much acts like an angry toddler, which I absolutely love, but it makes everything Bear does to her much more gross. Wish Nikki is basically seeing the world for the first time. The only source of comfort for her is what Bear wished for, loving him more than anyone else in the world, including herself. The theme of physical and mental abuse and manipulation is very prevalent with this character, and again, I love that the horror is used to make Nikki scary while showing just how much the 2 personalities is absolute torture for her mentality. There's a couple instances where Wish Nikki acts unnerving, and one of my favorite theories is that both the bedroom scene and the flower scenes are signs that real Nikki's trauma is leaking through Wish Nikki, and she's trying so hard to keep it in. Hell, even in the scene where Bear comes home and finds her covered in piss, shit, sweat, and vomit, I like the idea of Nikki being in control enough to make herself undesirable to Bear, trying so desperately to just have him understand her suffering. Nikki is such a tragic character that shouldn't have gone through this bullshit. I love that the movie doesn't treat her like the villain. My favorite scene in the movie is Wish Nikki's breakdown with Bear. It's genuinely devastating hearing her repeatedly tell Bear that she can be Nikki, desperately clinging on to a person that is so off-putting by the strange behavior that he directly caused her to have. Such an emotionally heavy scene that had me tearing up and perfectly shows the chemistry between Johnson and Never Ready. Michael and Indy have such an off-putting but magnetic chemistry. It's a dynamic that shouldn't work, but absolutely does due to both actors understanding what they needed to bring to the table at each stage of Bear and Nikki's relationship. The first act, the conversations between Bear and normal Nikki are generally great and slightly awkward to watch towards the end before he makes the wish. I love that she confronts Bear outright and asks if he likes her, which prompted the theory that she was trying to turn him down easily. The car scene in general feels like one that could literally have so many outcomes. I wonder how their friendship would look had Bear said yes, or if he gave her the one wish willow, what would she wish for? Or even if he said yes and got rejected, would he still use the willow to make the wish, though not out of frustration but desperation? Shit like this is what makes Obsession so fucking good and honestly fun to analyze. And what I like about the first scene when Bear makes the wish is that it immediately makes the movie off-putting to watch. The score going dead silent as he snaps the willow, Bear seeing Nikki standing outside her house, bass in silhouette. It's so unnerving and such a smooth transition from a corny but fun rom-com to a horrifying experience with an underlying tragedy. And the moments where she snaps back to normal is so fascinating. I love that there isn't a complete reason as to why it happened. For probably the first time ever, I'm completely fine with not getting answers, nor do I really want to have them. The movie works because it presents a lot of questions naturally. We never know something before the characters, or in this case Bear does, and the question of where Nikki actually was when Wish Nikki takes over is just not answered. I really love that. The slightest hint we get is that she's in some sort of purgatory judging by the customer service phone call that ends with Nikki screaming in horror. My personal theory is that Nikki is trapped with her own mind, not exactly conscious as to what's going on, but absolutely aware of what's being done to her body. I also think Wish Nikki actively takes real Nikki's memories when she tries to figure out how to have Bear take her home with her. Another example of this is during the porch scene where she tells Bear she's had feelings for him that started back in December, which feels a little too specific for that to be the Wish just conjuring up a detail like that. It would definitely explain a lot of the mental anguish she starts to have towards the second half of the movie. Anytime she regains control, it's like she's immediately shoved out of the driver's seat, and fun fact, the longest she's actually in control is in the party scene, which brings up my next point. After a while, she resorts to self-harm since it must be absolute hell being stuck in a place you have no control over, a place that should be your own mind intruded by a fake version of yourself, all because Bear didn't want to admit his feelings. But, switching gears, I really dug Cooper Tomlinson and Tomlinson. Switching gears, I really dug Cooper Tomlinson and Megan Lawless's performances as Ian and Sarah. Cooper does a swell job making Ian a douchebag that lets his pride and ego get in the way of how he goes about dealing with Bear's and Nikki's relationship. Ian is the perfect dude-bro type character that brings a lot of levity in between the fucked up bits of the movie. Despite being a dick, I do like how he isn't insufferable and actually looks annoyed by how ignorant Bear is being about Nikki. The look he gives to him at the party is the most subtle, are you fucking serious look I've ever seen. It's hilarious. And Sarah is honestly a really good side character that isn't in the movie much, but still feels like a genuine member of the friend group. She's not an entirely innocent person, but she definitely lets her true feelings about Nikki come out as the movie progresses, and for what it's worth, I like that her and Bear seem like genuine friends. There's enough of her throughout the movie to make the ultimate reveal of her getting into Luther feel so fucking sad, man. Her death is such a shocking and brutal kill that I saw coming, but still felt heartbroken for her, especially since Wish Nikki just mutilates her corpse and wears her scalp and clothes as a way to be attractive to Bear. The score by Rock Burwell is phenomenal. I love the use of keyboards and synth. It has such a dreamlike atmosphere that makes the movie's sound design so pleasant on the ears. One of my favorite songs is definitely Love Is in the Air. Highlights the facade of Bear and Nikki's relationship fantastically with the hopeful, cheesy rom-com type score, but has a few odd notes that makes it feel uneasy, only to just drop out at any given moment. I know it sounds like I'm overhyping it, but believe me, this movie is fucking terrifying. All of the scares work. There isn't a single one out of place. I genuinely felt uneasy watching Nikki move like a puppet on strings, and again, that scene with her in the corner crying and a distorted voice in the flowers scene gave me chills. And the fact that she goes okay great after doing it sometimes like nothing happened is so unnerving. The cinematography is also outstanding for a feature debut. Curry plays around a lot with the wide angles and lets some shots linger long enough to make the movie feel uncomfortable. The aspect ratio really does make the movie feel claustrophobic with very little open space. He allows all the attention in the middle of the screen, which makes it all the more scarier since just like Bear, we're forced to look at the horrors he's caused. That 30 to 35 seconds of Wish Nikki smiling feels like an eternity. I love it. And my god, the ending is fucked up. I genuinely think it leaves on one of the darkest notes I've seen in a horror movie lately. The entire third act, from the moment Bear gets the idea to have Ian try to undo the wish to Bear being put under a wish, is genuinely fantastic and stressful as fuck. Wish Nikki goes full tilt, and this is where Indy's performance goes from a 10 to a straight fucking 20. Good lord. It's something straight out of Evil Dead, and I swear, Indy transforms into a completely different person altogether. The fact that this is just her face with zero prosthetics is fucking insane. I love it. And I love that Bear, after Ian gets domed, just goes blank. The look of shock turning into just nothing, only to then transform to utter fear as Wish Nikki screams at him is crazy good acting by Michael. And then you get to the scene that was all over the teasers. I really like that Bear uses the pills that were set up in the opening. I love when a Chekhov's gun is used effectively. This and the gun is set up so perfectly, and I also like how in classic Bear fashion, he immediately tries to chicken out at the last minute before being taken over by the wish made by Wish Nikki. Man, I'm just now realizing how bad it is calling her Wish Nikki. I really love when Wish Bear comes out of the bathroom and sees Wish Nikki. It's such a dark moment to see these two under spells, but also oddly cute seeing them smile at each other and perfectly brings the fucked up rom-com aspect full circle. And the score just crescendoing as they kiss is so good. It's the most peace these two have before Wish Bear dies. Nikki snapping out of the spell just as she's about to end it is haunting, but what makes it even worse is that she slowly realizes what's going on. It's genuinely such a fucked up way to end the movie, and the amount of grief and mental exhaustion that must have hit Nikki as she starts to break down had to have been painful. It's an ending that shocked me so much I let the credits play, and just hearing Nikki's wails, fuck man. Most people speculate that she'll get arrested or run away scot-free, but in my opinion, I think she'll just end it. Imagine being under a spell for like 2 or maybe 3 weeks. You snap out of it a few times and catch glimpses of your supposed friend taking advantage of your body. Then when you gain control back, you see all of your friends dead and your abuser dead, on your lap holding a gun, and your brain basically catches up on the overwhelming grief and torment your body was put through. It'd be surprising if Nikki didn't kill herself, let alone muster enough strength to even leave Bear's house. Obsession is a movie that, unlike a lot of other 2026 releases, has stuck with me long after I watched it. It's a movie that just gets better and better as it goes on. The moment you think that the high is about to wear off, they do something that reels you back in, and it ends on such a great and tragic note that it had me immediately wanting to rewatch it. This is a disturbing but also really enjoyable movie that's going to be really hard to ignore when the award season comes around next year. I already know it won't get a Best Picture nom since, unlike Sinners, it's a full-blown horror movie, but saying this right now, if Michael Johnson and Indy Never Ready get snubbed for Best Actor and Best Supporting Actress noms, I'm gonna riot. There is legitimately no reason for them to not be nominated. Both performances are genuinely fantastic. They continuously build off one another without either one being outshined. If Odyssey ends up taking up most of the awards, me and Christopher Nolan are gonna fucking fight. So to end off, I'm gonna give Obsession a very rare 10 out of 10. A flawless big screen debut from a very promising director. Looking forward to seeing what Curry does next.